So one of the things I've thought about trying for a while, seen it in various forms online, is it's called ebonizing wood. So what you do is you take some vinegar, dissolve some steel wool in it or steel of some kind, iron in it, create a solution that has that iron in it, which is what I've got here, and you essentially just paint it on some wood, and that reacts with the natural tannins. In my understanding, natural tannins in the woods, and it turns it a dark color. I'm not sure how well it works with hickory, but here is just a standard 28-inch curved house handle. Really nothing too special about it. It's a nice handle. I think it'd make a good project once I kind of tuned it up a little bit and shaped up the palm swell. But I've got a few of these kicking around, so I wanted to try using the solution on it and seeing how well it worked out, or at least what kind of color change I got, what it looked like. Just kind of keep it in mind for future projects. Get set up, throw some gloves on, throw a sheet of paper underneath it just to kind of save the bench from a little bit more of the wear and tear, even though it's already pretty weathered. So either way, I'll get set up and bring you guys back. So before I get into it, I'll bring you up, give you a little closer look at the handle itself, kind of get an idea of how light the wood is. It's nice wood. The handle itself is very nice. Pretty minimal run out. Good grain orientation. There's enough meat in the palm swell to do something with. You watch some of my other videos, kind of shape it up how I like. So that's good. I think this would be a good candidate. The only thing I'm just not crazy about is just how light the wood is. I really like the look of heartwood better. I know there's a big, I don't know how big, but there's two schools of thought. Some people believe that the sapwood is stronger. Other people believe that the heartwood is stronger. I don't really have a firm opinion either way. I think the heartwood is prettier, so that's usually what I prefer to use. Just because if I've got an axe, I'd like to enjoy how it looks while I'm using it. I'm sure it's plenty strong enough. I think grain orientation and more specifically run out has a much bigger factor in whether it's a good handle or not, rather than heartwood versus sapwood. So anyway, that's a conversation for another time. If you're more informed about it, go with what you think. My school of thought's always that, well, even if the heartwood's a little bit more brittle, if it breaks, I'll just replace it. So, got my gloves on. Not really because I'm worried about the solution. It's just vinegar, but just because it will stain my hands. I don't really feel like dealing with that. So, we'll paint this on and see how it goes. It's got a little craft paintbrush here. I don't know how quick this works. We'll see. Alright, we'll kind of let that sit. It actually started turning color a lot quicker than I expected. I'm gonna bring it in closer, kind of get a good impression of what it's done so far. It's kind of real time. Looking at the camera, it's been recording for 7 minutes, and I'm sure a good portion of that was me running my mouth beforehand. So, yeah, it's already started taking on some nice color. It's definitely not as dark as I thought it was going to be at the start. But that might darken up yet. It's definitely a way to make it just some bare sapwood, some bright white sapwood look at least a little more interesting. So just with the initial results, I'm already impressed. I'm gonna kind of paint a little bit more on here to make sure the wood's kind of nicely saturated, and let it sit. Kind of maybe leave the camera running, get a little bit of a time lapse going on just exactly how dark it gets, what the color turns into. So like I said, that was really bright wood to start with, so definitely happy with the color change so far. And if I were doing this in the future, I'd definitely get a bigger brush. This is definitely undersized, but it's what I have on hand, so that's what I'm using. It'd be interesting to try this with sapwood too. See if that gets significantly darker, or if in the end of it, it's really the kind of the tannin content that determines how dark it gets. So we'll do some experimenting, depending on how the results of this come out. So. That's it. Just kind of make sure it's coated as evenly as possible. Alright, see it's already reacting with just the wood itself, so cool. Let it sit, leave this rolling, and maybe you guys will be able to kind of pick up what the change is as I speed up the footage. I'll pause the time lapse for a second here and bring this over just for comparison. Let it sit next to it. This one to start was actually, same handles. I ordered them at the same time. This one is actually just maybe even a slightly bit darker to start with. This is probably the whitest one. So just in comparison right away, that's super dark. So I'm really happy with that. I think that looks really cool. I think it gives a lot of character to it. We'll see how it looks once it's finally done drying, and maybe how it ages. But I think that's probably the best results I've ever had with trying to turn hickory a better color. Tried using stain on it before, just wasn't happy with the results. So we'll see once this fully dries, fully cures. It's still wet to the touch, not sopping, but you can tell the wood's wet. You can feel the wood's wet. So I'm sure there's still chemical reactions happening within the wood itself. So let it kind of dry out and season. I'll leave this sitting next to it kind of for more of a comparison, just kind of real time as it runs. So it's impressive. It's only been, the camera's been running 16 minutes. So really cool. So keep watching it and see what happens. Interrupt you guys again. I'm not sure what the tannin content is in different wood. I've done zero research on it, but here's a little hammer handle blank that, not quite the straightest, but probably turned into something that I kind of made out of black locust. So it's one of my favorite handle woods. Sometimes it can be a little yellowish. When it ages, it turns into like a really nice honey color. This is the first black locust handle I ever carved, so you can see it takes on like a really nice honey color. Really cool. These are my favorite little hatchets. Maybe we'll do a video on that at some point in the future, but figure I'll throw some of the solution on here and just kind of see what happens. I'll leave one side, maybe leave this side original, and just do this side kind of for a comparison. But yeah, so as you see me working in the background as the time lapse is running, that's what I'll be doing over here, and I'll set it next to it. All right, I'm gonna stop the time lapse here because I'm getting impatient. It's only been 38 minutes. To the touch, it's still slightly wet, so I think what I'm gonna do is actually take the heat gun and just try to like gently hit it to dry it out a little bit. Finish drying it out. I'm curious as to how deep the color went, and also what it will look like with oil on it. So my plan is to hit it with the heat gun, finish drying it out enough, then maybe hit it with some steel wool, because putting the vinegar solution on it did definitely pop the grain. You can feel little like fibers that have lifted. So hit it with the steel wool, kind of burnish it a little bit, and then maybe I'll even oil it just to see what it looks like. But either way, heat gun first, then. All right, I think that looks really good as it is. Like I said, I am really curious to see how. It feels pretty dry. Maybe a little bit wet still on the palm swell. I am curious to see how deep this color kind of penetrated into the wood. I think that's good enough to try burnishing it with the steel wool. Actually, I'll bring it in closer for a look. So I think the grain definitely looks really cool. When it was wet, you could definitely tell the differences in color a lot easier. Focus. I do wonder how deep the color went, just because I got a little overzealous with the heat gun here, and the color did kind of start to change right in the part of that palm swell, but we'll see. Like I said, we'll hit it with the steel wool, see if the color just comes right off, or if it kind of penetrated enough that it'd be worthwhile. I like the color as it is, though, so I think especially once you put oil on it, it'll darken up to a nice like chestnut maybe, so that'd be cool. It does feel good. So the burnishing definitely took it down. It still feels just a tiny bit wet, but it's kind of an experiment handle, so should be fine. It'll be fine. I don't know. Do I let it dry more? Do I throw oil on it? I'm just gonna throw oil on it. I already know I'm too impatient, so we're gonna try that. See how it goes. This is the progress after burnishing. It's kind of a nice gray color. I was hoping it was going to keep a little bit more of that chestnutty kind of brown, but I'm still happy with this. I think this still looks significantly better than just the bare. I mean, if you like the bright white hickory, sure, yeah, it's kind of clean looking, but I like something with a little bit more character, a little bit more age. And it'd be interesting to see how this does age over time too. Again, remember, these started off essentially exactly the same color. That's wild to me. A little bit of vinegar and steel wool. Alright. Oil it up and see. Because I wonder how much the color will change as it's oiled. Let that soak in a bit. Bring it up close, kind of let you see it. It's looking cool. No, not quite the color I was thinking it was going to be end up as right as it first dried, but I'm definitely happy with it. I think it's certainly a cool way to make it look more unique, more vintage, I guess. Definitely got like a more weathered look to it, especially with the kind of gray hues that are in there. So I'm happy with it. Like I said, I didn't really shape up this handle or fit anything with it, so I think it's still perfectly usable for something. So maybe I'll shape it down and hang something with it and turn it into a project, but let the oil kind of soak in, see how that changes the color a little bit. We'll come back. Again, if you watch some of the last videos, this is walnut oil, which is also a polymerizing oil. The Mahoney's finishes. It's kind of expensive, but it doesn't have the chemical dryers in it like the boiled linseed oil, which I've also used barehanded. Haven't seen any problems, but who knows? A lot of people say it's not healthy for me, so probably intend to believe them. So when I am using the boiled linseed oil, I usually try to throw some gloves on. But with the walnut oil, I'm not worried about it. It says it's food safe. Directly after applying it, you don't even need to wait for it to cure. So it's kind of cool for if you're doing any woodworking or carving like spoons or something like that, or bowls. You can kind of use that for it, and it's a little less toxic than the boiled linseed oil. Concern me a little less. All right, get my hands cleaned up. Let this kind of dry and soak in. We'll come back and wipe it off. Soaked in a little bit. I think this is pretty much the final color that it's gonna be. It might kind of dull out a little bit, but see up here, that's that kind of chestnutty color. Definitely got darker where the fibers were kind of severed, but or ragged, I guess. Yeah, I think that's definitely cool looking. A little more interesting than just the plain bare sapwood, I guess. So yeah, definitely shape it up a little more. No, I'll use this handle for something, but I'm happy with how the color came out. Color on the black locust, that turned super black real quick, so I think that's got to have a really high tannin content. From the edges, I'm not really sure how deep it kind of sunk in. I'll have to do some more testing where kind of saturate the outside of a piece of wood and then maybe take a cross section of it and see how deep it really got in there. With burnishing the handle, it did lighten it up a little bit, so my suspicions are that it didn't really soak in too far, but you might be able to change that with multiple applications, kind of letting it sit a little longer. If I were to do this again for one that I'm specifically using to build an axe for, I'd probably get all of my shaping done, wherever I want. If I wanted to shape up the palm swell, do that, thin it down, get your hang, probably 99% done, and almost ready to do that final seat, and then do your ebonizing. Then go back, maybe do a really light sanding with some like 400 grit sandpaper, or just burnish it. The burnishing didn't get it quite as smooth as I usually do when I sand prior to burnishing, but it's close. So I'd probably do like a really light sanding on any problem areas, and then burnish it. Then do your final hang and oiling. Maybe we'll do a project video on it, but just wanted to do a little bit of a test and kind of see if it did what I thought it would do. It kind of did. Colors are definitely a little different than what I was expecting, but I like them either way, so I'll consider it a success. Again, just comparing it to the original color that it was. It's just such a stark difference. So that's cool, because I've got a few of these handles that are that really light sapwood color that I wasn't just too crazy about using. Yeah, we'll probably try this one. Alright, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Also, if you try this on a handle that you have, let me know.